Hello, everybody. So yes, my purpose today is not to share with you some results of scientific research, but to give you an overview of the audiovisual resources we kept at the MIM. The MIM, as it is clearly suggested in the name, is a musical instrument museum where sound recordings and devices have long been left to the background. It was asked to me in 2017 to create and manage a new so-called audiovisual collection regarding all the recordings and devices held by the museum. A huge work which I accepted with pleasure and honor, not to mention my work as the librarian of the museum and the fact that I work part-time. So I knew from that day that I had enough work until my retirement, in case of any of you were worried about me. As I just said, no item, device or sound carrier have been added to the inventory of or the catalog of the MIM since its foundation in 1877. It was just collected and stored somewhere in the museum. It was not until the 80s that the museum cylinders and phonographs were inventoried. But there was still no curator responsible for them. They were added to the musical instrument collection without any further sub-collection details. As my colleague Franche Toraval told you this morning, the founder of the MIM, Victor Charles Mahillon, started a phonographic collection at the very end of the 19th century. But after a few successful attempts, it seems that the sound collecting has been left behind. During the 20th century, some private donations or curators' field recordings came to enhance the collection. So my job was to bring together all the recordings collected, acquired and produced by the museum since more than a century, as well as all the sound devices from the earliest phonographs to the actual MP3 players. Among the various sound carriers preserved at the MIM, there are nearly 15,000 pieces stored in various locations of the museum, in the library, in the storage rooms, in colleagues' offices, in the sound control room. More specifically, we have about 1,000 phonographic cylinders, 3,500 shellac discs, 3,600 long-playing vinyl discs, 500 EPs, 1,500 cassettes and magnetic tapes, 5,000 CDs, as well as mini disc and DAT cassettes. And new donations still happen, though I have to admit that I become really regarding when I have to accept new ones, mostly because of the lack of space and the lack of staff to help me process the new funds. The first thing I did was to reorganize the sound control room by a professional sound engineer to meet our needs for digitization and recording artistic performance. Up to now, with our equipment, I could only digitize shellac and vinyl disc and magnetic tapes. It's a slow, gradual process depending on demand. Unfortunately, I never have time to devote full days to it. Entire lots will have to be done by external companies in the future. Regarding the wax cylinders, we do not have the appropriate equipment. I'll come later to that point in my presentation. I digitize the disc and tapes through the Tascam interface and the Reaper software, as you can see it on the image. The catalogued audio documents can be found in our online catalog Limo, accessible from our MIM site. We are currently laying the foundations in collaboration with the Africa Museum to set up a platform that will include all the audio and video sources of both institutions and will allow the visitor to make target researches, just like the kind of service Gallica offers to these visitors. This project is called Be Music and we will definitely work to include it into the collaborative European Archives Network project that was presented yesterday. Until now, visitors have to ask me to get a copy. One of our most valuable shellac disc collection is the one from the Robert Pernay collection, a Belgian jazz collector whose collection was donated to us after his death in 2003. We will now listen to the first Belgian jazz recording made by Chas Rému and his New Stompers, playing a piece called The Bridge of Avignon in June 1927 at the Edison Bell Studios of London. After having probably digitized the disc, I had a chance to play it on the portable gramophone Eastmaster 102. I believe it's nothing better to get the real sound of the 20s. Let's imagine ourselves picnicking in the fields with some good wine from Avignon. In addition to the sound carriers, there are now the so-called born digital records. Among the numerous concerts recorded at the MIM since 2000, we have the MIM's curator footage and the new MIM's productions to manage. For all those films or audio records, I store the files with an inventory number and compile a database as exhaustive as possible. You can see it there on the picture too. I keep a master copy on external hard drives and on the museum server. Some of them are available on the YouTube channel of the museum. Most of them are only available on demand so far. Here you can see Nikos Papalexis from the Greek island of Crete playing a self-made lira. And this is Eric Baya from Kenya playing Nzumari. Ah, what happened? There we go. All these videos production feed into our YouTube channel, which was more or less unknown and unused before 2017. Since then, it has been regularly updated with new videos produced by the museum, so in other words, mostly by myself. Among them, sorry for that, I have to admit, among them videos of musicians playing also ancient instruments, such as this one with Aline Hopsche playing Tilman Susato on a soprano shone and reaching a good score since 5 years. The new film series Traditional Music in Belgium is created by my colleague Stéphane Collin and myself with the aim of filming and archiving the living musical folklore still happening in Belgium. Some of these folklores are facing extinction. This project results in movies of quarter to 45 minutes depending on the amount of information collected. We film, we record and make the editing ourselves. It is quite a long work to do. We try to be mobile and as flexible as possible to all situations and field configurations. All these films are available again on the YouTube channel of the MIM. Now let's deep into the very early recordings. A few years ago, thanks to the research of my colleague Fange Toraval, who works on the Mahillon's archives, we have discovered very old wax cylinders, as he just told us, forgotten among the thousands of cylinders stored in the museum storage rooms. While most of them come from commercial sources, a good 100 are the result of domestic and field recordings. This is therefore a discovery of utmost archival importance. As I told you, we don't have the material to digitize these items in our museum, so we had to provide the services of a qualified sound engineer in Brussels who does, Marc Doutrepont from a company called Equus. We could so far digitize 70 wax cylinders, well actually a bit less because some of them were broken. Among them, of course, the precious Indian, Greek and other Chinese cylinders that Fange talked about this morning, but also very rare cylinders from domestic use, perhaps self-made home recordings, valuable testimony of everyday life, featuring people reciting poems, celebrating birthdays, singing songs, and offering all kinds of good wishes to their loved ones. The short video that you're about to see traces the stages of this digitization process that happened barely a month ago in the MIM. So it starts with the removal of the cylinders from the storage room by myself and a colleague, the assembly of the transcription devices by the sound engineer, and the discovery of the sound contained in the wax grooves. By listening to the cylinder, the one that we will hear carefully and repeatedly, I had to do it like 100 times, I was able to identify the announcement in French and therefore the retailer, the seller. It's the Comptoir Général des Machines Parlantes de Bruxelles, a retailer of phonograph and cylinders operating in Brussels from 1897 to 1903. Thanks to these recordings, I discovered that the retailer also had his own orchestra. The seller's date of activity are provided in the two catalogues available on the French Phonorama website of Julian Anton. I have not been able to find any other information so far. In the catalogue, we discovered that the speed of their cylinders is 140 RPM. This allowed me to slow down a bit the sound of the engineer's work that was at 160. The piece you are about to discover is called La Marche des Chauffeurs, which means the driver's march, easily recognizable by the horn blast used by the orchestra of the Comptoir Général des Machines Parlantes de Bruxelles. I believe no one has listened to this record for more than 100 years, and I believe too that this cylinder is very probably the only one left on Earth. So let's dive into the heart of Brussels at the beginning of the last century. But first with the, as I said, the process that we did in the museum.
Exécuté par l'orchestre du Comptoir Général des Machines Parlantes de Bruxelles.
Okay, so you have that horn all the way along, so it's a bit... In the following example, we are about to hear a young daughter offering good wishes to her mother for Mother's Day. I'm not sure about the date, it's very hard to say. I believe it's about the same time, in the very beginning of the 20th century. The recording is followed by whistles of joy and a Flemish song sung by a man. What I can hear is "Zo lang we zullen leven," which means so long we will live. I can't find anything about is that song famous or not in Flemish, I don't know. But as a reminder, Brussels is a bilingual city where it is common for both languages to be spoken within the same family. The girl, we will listen to the entire roll of a wax cylinder. I could find, first it was very difficult to understand what she was saying. And after listening to it a few times, I could find a few words, and with these words I typed it in internet, and then I discovered that it was a poem of Elise Moreau, but a bit different. She adapted it for her mother.
La fête d'une mère, toi si bonne, toi si parfaite, lui-même avec tant d'amour, petite mère que son job t'a faite, pour ton enfant généreuse. En échange de mes offrandes, de mes chants, pour toi t'apposer, de mes bouquets, de mes guirlandes, donne-moi beaucoup d'apposer. Pour toi chaque jour t'en remets, ma voix t'adopte le Seigneur. Mais ce matin, la prière avec encore plus de ferveur. Dieu le donnera, sur ta vie répandra tant de bienfaits, tant de calme, petite mère, chérie, que tu ne pleureras plus jamais. Oui, pour que tu sois satisfaite, je ferai si bien mes devoirs. Je dirai sans lever la tête ma prière une fois. Je ne serai plus capable, et que tu me défendras. Et puis je serai toujours prête, oh, tout ce que tu me diras. Embrasse-moi donc, mère aimée. Ah, prête-moi bien sur ton cœur. C'est ma place à coutumer dans la joie ou dans la douleur. Oh, le cœur d'une bonne mère, c'est le bien le plus libre cieux. Le seul bonheur que j'ai sur terre, laisse tomber Dieu de cieux. Enregistré ta
Dag Tante hoe goed Tante Joh, hoe hij iets doet dingen zelf. Geef me positera, geef me positera. Zolang je le leven, zullen we posten geven. Geef me positera, geef me positera. Zolang je le leven, tot morgen zelf. Dag Tante Rockwood.
Dag allemaal, denk ik. Of tot morgen. At the end he says goodbye, I think so. Okay, in addition to the 15,000 sound carriers, the MIM audiovisual collection includes more than 350 various sound devices. Only a few of them are displayed in the exhibition rooms and therefore visible to visitors. Recently, the MIM acquired a very rich donation of Charles Emmanuel Lemaire, more than 40 magnificent mechanical phonographs and gramophones, dating from the end of the 19th century to the 30s. They are all playable in great conditions and retrace themselves the history of sound recording of the mechanical era. I'll just show very quickly a few highlights of that collection. Here you have an old Berliner gramophone from 1897, and next to it the Triumph Edison model with its flower-shaped horn. The Decca was the first portable gramophone assembled in England. It was made in 1915, and after leaving the factory was taken to the Western Front. Around 50,000 Decca instruments were made, and many of them accompanied the troops in the trenches during the Great War. It was often referred as the trench Decca. Here we have the Edison Army Navy that was produced for an 18-month period from July 1917 to the end of the war. It weighed about over 100 kilograms with lead blocks in the bottom of the case for stability and was housed in a sturdy wooden case reinforced with metal corners. This is one of the rare Edison flat disc gramophones. Here beautiful gramophones use paper to diffuse the sound. One look like a butterfly, the other one like a shining sun. And after the suitcase gramophone, attempts were made to make increasingly smaller gramophones, as you know. Everything fits in a box in one hand. Of course, the sound was not the most powerful. The Colibri is a Belgian brand with some components made in Switzerland, and the Gamma Fola is an example of a toy gramophone. And next to it, the huge EMG oversize comes from the English maker Ellis Michael Ginn in 1924. He wanted to build gramophones that surpassed all their predecessors in terms of sound quality. The components were entirely handmade. The enormous amplifier horn from 85 centimeters is made of papier-mâché based on old London telephone directories. Good reuse. As conclusion, I wish I could have take a picture of my two cats on a gramophone just to be in the, but I didn't know we had to do this. I am pleased. I am pleased to announce you our plans for an exciting exhibition project in the future for the 150th anniversary of the phonograph in 2027, which also will be the 150th anniversary of the MIM. We plan to assign part of our exhibition rooms to the history of sound recording. The exhibition, so far called Sounds Matter, referring to the importance of the sound and the way we manage to engrave it into the matter, will focus mainly on the early days of recording, looking at the pioneers and concentrating in particular on the mechanical era, with highlights including live recordings for visitors to enjoy. Of course, there will be also an overview of the evolution of techniques from the electrical revolution with the microphone and amplifiers in 25 up to the present day. This will be an opportunity to showcase our finest collection pieces and to play some of our oldest recordings, but also to organize a symposium on how listening has evolved since the this sonic revolution, as well as partnership and collaborations, I hope with ERA, I hope with some people here in the room, as it is already the case with the Charles Cros collection from the National Library of Paris. I would be delighted to discuss this further with you, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Amazing, your collection.